Alright, after our 1 week hiatus, welcome back to Full Circle. As always, Chad, Cheddar Caveman on all the social media ever. And I don't have anything too big of news. I had last week I took off here just because I was getting ready for Thanksgiving here in the US for my international listeners, if there are any of those. So today we're going to get back with basically a pretty standard episode. I'm just going to touch on just a little bit of news, but mostly we'll talk through a number of model entries that are relevant to Circle, and we'll go from there. Down the road here, I've been doing some practicing with Una 2. Obviously, she's been there's been a lot of news with her. We talked about her on a previous episode. As I have some more list ideas ironed out and sort of more I want to go into detail with her, I plan to do that. Right now she's performing very well for me, and we'll see. And there's a lot of conjecture about if her or Scarsfield's Griffins or the Sentry Stones will be part of the errata in January, so we'll see. We may or may not visit it before or after that, so we'll see there. Just quick tidbits of news. We saw Jason Souls had a lot to say about Scorn and where they're at for the errata. Sounds like a pretty healthy number of changes are at least being investigated there. And I'm happy for them. That's good. I think the changes seem like they're good. I'm glad Scorn players will get a little bit of attention. I think the journeyman warcaster who went to Zadesh is a good addition for them. Up till now, largely Circle, I would say if you knew their tricks and you knew what lists that Scorn could bring, you probably could prepare for them. So we'll see if that is still the case when things shake out, or if there's any specific things we need to worry about. Other than that, there's been a few clarifications on what is and isn't happening errata-wise from Will Schick that has been posted to the Privateer Press website. Nothing. I don't think there's anything really worth overly noting there at the moment. So if there is, or when there is, we will again obviously discuss it. So as far as Circle related news, I don't think we have anything new. We know as we talked about last week, we've got Loki coming, we've got Kaya 3 coming, we have the command book coming all in February. And those of you who didn't prefer to wait, your Una 2 will be released officially in February as well. So I don't think there's. I guess we did have a Minions release of the Brigands and Commandos in plastic. So I have not played with either unit at this time, so I don't have a whole lot to add to that. The Commander unit seems interesting. The Brigands have been performing pretty well for folks in and out of Minions. I've not seen them a ton in Circle yet, but they seem like a strong unit. They can do a lot of things. So I will maybe get a hold of them someday. We'll talk about them. But for now, just throw that out there. The Megalith resculpt was released, and we still have upcoming the Tharn Wolf Rider Champion and the Storm Raptor. So more to come on them toward the end of December, early January for us to talk about in here. In the meantime, I think we actually will kick off with a couple minion entries that are relevant to Circle. And I'm going to start with the Totem Hunter, or he's just Totem Hunter. I say the a lot. So to quick go through his stats, he is a minion solo who is speed 7, strength 8, mat 8. He is defense 14, armor 15, and command 7, although I don't think that matters at all. He has Pathfinder and stealth. He has 8 wounds. He has 2 melee attacks. One is a 2-inch melee range that is power plus strength 14. And he has a spiked buckler, which has a range of a 1/2 inch and is power 11. And it is, in fact, a buckler, so it will take his armor up to 16 if you are in front of him or don't have a chain weapon or something like that. He costs you 6 points. He plays for all of Hordes, so Circle, Legion, Scorn, and Trollbloods. As far as special rules, he has Jump. He has prey, so +2 to attack and damage rolls against his prey target. So that's going to take him up to a mat 10 and power 16 and 13 respectively. So nothing to scoff at there. He has sprint, so if he destroys at least one, or destroys or removes from play an enemy model, he can make a full advance at the end of his activation. And he has tracker, which we talked about with Scarsfell Griffin, but he ignores force when determining line of sight when declaring a charge. So if you saw my Tanith list, you saw the Totem Hunter in there, and I recently got pictures from my painting from Griffin's Roost painting, so thought it would be a good time to go ahead and talk about him. And he is pretty fantastic. I was very happy with him in that Tanith list. I have not yet explored him in any other lists, but I like the utility that he does bring. With Prey, taking him to mat 10 can be, I mean, you're talking about at worst, for the most part in the game, at worst, he's going to need 7s to hit. And even at mat 8, most things are defense 14 or less, so he's 6s or lower. And +2 to damage, I mean, a POW 16 charge out of a 6-point solo is phenomenal. A stealth solo at that. And then he's very flexible, so if you need to start whittling away at some infantry, you can have him go in. He can either charge or jump, which again, with jump, he can sometimes get in the back, so another +2 to hit, potentially. And he's pretty superb at being able to kill basically anything that is small based, I would say, and maybe some of the lightly armored medium bases, but you're going to want to be charging in that case. So with that, he gets in there, he gets them, he sprints back, and most of the time with him, and in my experience, it's been Sentry Stones, but you know, a little bit more damage from like a Pureblood spray, Sentry Stone spray, Mannequin sprays, just shots from anything else you happen to have in your army, and he's going to be relatively safe. And with the added benefit of, if you have a forest out there, he can stand on the other side of it. They can't see him. He can charge them, goes through charge back through the forest, or sometimes he sprints behind their line. Very, very good. Very good solo. All of Mark II, I sort of was like looking for places to put this guy, and he was always 3 points, and I was like, well, I don't know. And you know, and I've got stalkers, they can give everything sprint, so he's not anything special necessarily, and you know, but really I started, and this was on the advice of another circle player, but I really liked being able to apply something like Scything Touch. Curse of Shadows would apply here too, where now we're taking him up to a power 18 potentially against a heavy target. So if they have a lot of heavy targets and you know one of them's coming forward, huge bases are very key here. Often you could send in, so with Tanith I was throwing in, say, 1 or 2 Griffins, which would rough up the target and they'd be almost dead, and then I could send the Totem Hunter in sort of as Griffin number 3. He ignored force the same as them, and so forth. And a power 18 charge would often be enough to take care of it. So he's really good for that. Stealth makes him, it's 6 points with stealth if he's the only stealth thing you have and you can't keep him safe behind a forest. He may get like Reinholted and then shot, and that, you know, a decent POW shot will kill him. So will some of the K-Roll blast damage that's out there. I've found that isn't always going to be enough, or that will often be enough to get through his armor, especially if he gets hit with a couple of them. 8 wounds is good, but it's not amazing. You're really going to want to keep this guy safe by using sprint. You're going to want to keep him safe by, you know, getting his awkward positions, getting behind their lines. So, you know, if maybe first turn he may have to run, but after that, kill something, sprint back, kill something, sprint to their back line. Or if you're deep enough early, you could do that all on the first one. Sometimes you just want to keep coming back towards yourself. It really depends. You just want to look at what they've got and try to keep them safe. Obviously in Circle, being familiar with sprint is not anything new. Although he's speed 7, so that is certainly nice, and with that 2-inch melee range. So The Totem Hunter, overall, very, very solid entry for Circle. Very solid entry, really, for anyone. He gets overlooked a lot. I would say certainly consider giving him a little bit of table time, just because even without Scything Touch, I think a Power 16 charge is going to be good. And obviously, Mat 8 and 2 attacks, he's hopefully going to sort of work in a similar way to what like a Kel Baylock would, but in melee. And guys like Kel Baylock and Alton Ashley are... they're not going to be able to do anything about him unless they have Reinhold or some other way to remove stealth. So, and that is, I think, about all that I have to say on the Totem Hunter at the moment. So let's go ahead and we'll continue on the trend, and let's make him a little bigger while I'm here. There we go. Let's talk about another mercenary or minion solo, Hutchuck. So again, I was playing Hutchuck in my Wormwood list at the time, and you'll see some others were as well, but let's go through what he's got. He is speed 5, strength 9, mat and rat 6, defense 13, armor 16, and he has tough. He has a ranged attack, which is range 8, rate of fire 1, AoE 3, power 12, called Alchemical Grenades, and he has a 2-inch range, power plus strength 14 mace. The grenades have attack types, so they have 3 attack types. They have brain damage. You choose one of these. You have brain damage. A model damaged, important there, by an attack with this weapon cannot cast spells for 1 round. He has Quake. On a direct hit against an enemy model, all the models hit become knocked down. And he has Rust. The attack causes no damage, and instead Warjack's hits suffer -2 armor for 1 turn. He also has 8 wounds and is likewise point cost 6. The other rules on the back, he has Alchemical Mask, so he does not suffer gas effects, and when determining line of sight or resolving attacks, he ignores cloud effects. Important to note. He has Ambush, and I'll just go, we haven't talked about Ambush yet, so I'll just go through the rules for Ambush. You can choose not to deploy this model at the start of the game. If it is not deployed normally, you can put it into play at the end of any of your control phases after your first turn. When you do, choose any table edge except the back of your opponent's deployment zone. Place this model completely within 3 inches of the chosen table edge. And we'll talk about Ambush here in a minute. He has Takedown, so models disabled by a melee attack made by him cannot make a tough roll, and models that are models boxed by a melee attack made by this weapon are removed from play. And he has Wild Shot, so this model can make 1 basic ranged attack during its activation before its own movement. If it does, it can use its combat action only to make melee attacks that activation. Which I believe still allows him to charge. I should have looked that up before this. Anyway, so Hutchuck. To my mind, the biggest reason you're bringing him is you want to have an edge against Warjacks. So brain damage is great, Quake is great, Power 14 takedown is great, tough, 8 wound, kind of hard to kill model is great, and Ambush is solid. All good rules. That said, I don't think for 6 points that you're looking to put this guy in a list unless you feel like Rust is something you can take advantage of. It is the only... that's not entirely true, but for the most part, it's the only damage buff we have in Circle that is list independent, or access to in Circle that is list independent. The only other one is arguably the Storm Raptor with its Animus at the moment. So he can take... any list that doesn't have a debuff, he can take. You bring him, and now Warjacks are going down another 2 armor. And to me, what he does is starts putting us into a position where we might be able to kill Warjacks with things that shouldn't be able to kill Warjacks. So if anybody played Signar or even Crix in Mark II, you'll notice, and Signar's a great example. So back in like 2012, Keith Christensen pioneered a list with Kane 2, and this was right when Colossals sort of started coming out, and Hordes battle groups were a pretty big deal too, but Colossals were coming out, and people were like, what do we do? Oh my god, blah, blah, blah. And what his answer to this was, and this sort of started a trend after this, was he put Gorman de Wolf, Aeon Holt, and Ragman all into one cane list. Now, we don't have access to those 3 solos, obviously, but Gorman had Rust, and that was Gorman was good anyways in Mark II. But one of the reasons he was in that list is because of Rust. So then you have a Colossal on the table, and you could Rust, Harm, and the other one, Death Shroud. They're Colossal or they're huge base, and Kane would just feet and shoot it off the table because he was getting +6 to his damage, so he's doing POW 18s, and that's it. He may even not need to feat in some cases, but he had access to the potential to do something like that. So we don't quite have that, but what we start getting when you can start swinging in their armor by 2 and then maybe throwing another by 2 or another by 2, we start getting into the range where things like Tharn Blood Trackers, Tharn Wolf Riders, maybe Ravagers, which we haven't really talked a lot about, and I haven't really got to playing. Pharaoh Brigands, which I just sort of mentioned off the cuff, and so on, right? And even things like lights, like maybe Arguses, again, helps Scarsfells, which we talked about with Tanith and with Una. You know, being able to stack these buffs makes it pretty reliable to kill a Warjack. So you've got a situation where that's what you're bringing him for. If your list is probably engineered to go into, or you need to make sure that that's the list you're playing into most of the War Machine armies that you see, and not just the armies that you see, but also that the armies you see are going to have enough Warjacks that you need to skew your list to deal with them, right? Hutchuck is going to be the guy for that. He's also going to be a fantastic, what do they call that? Specialist. So if you are playing Masters or some other specialist event for some reason, Hutchuck is a great piece to have in the side, because you may have, you know, let's say Wormwood, right, where most of the time a balanced list, maybe you have, you know, Blood Trackers, you know, Wolves Warboros or something like that, and then like a sort of balanced battle group and some support stuff in there, whatever. And now you're like, oh, okay, well, my opponent is probably going to bring some Warjacks. You add Hutchuck to that list. Now the Wolves Warboros, you throw Crystal Shadows, you throw Rust out there, and they possibly can mini feed if they need to. You go from POW 9s to POW 13, POW 13 Weapon Masters, a lot of damage. Wolf Riders, again, they're POW 9 Weapon Masters already. You throw this in there, they're POW 11 Weapon Masters in any list against a Warjack. And that's on the throw and the stab, which we haven't talked about them either, but we should. And that's pretty fantastic. So that's great. And a lot of those things that I just mentioned are going to do just fine against things in hordes that are not heavily armored, right? Like Legion Heavy is not something you often need more than like Blood Trackers to kill, depending on which one. But often that will be enough. You don't often need that much against Circle in the mirror match, right? We are not renowned for high armor or high armor models unless it's like Baldur 2. Things like that. So he is great for skewing that. Now, it's not always going to be Masters, not always going to have a Specialist army, so you're like, well, is this guy just 6 dead points if I'm not facing a War Machine? And the answer is no. I don't think you put him in the list unless you want to help yourself with that, but I do think that he is still relevant enough even if you don't. So 2 attack types. I've only ever made attacks with Rust and with Quake. Cool thing with Quake is if you ambush, likely you're going to be behind them, so you're going to be Rat 8 effectively. If they're too far to the side, you can even aim. Range 8's not bad. Speed 5's not bad, so 13-inch threat on that off the side, or 16 off the side. And the nice thing about that is it means the range attack, barring no knockdown rules, also defeats tough, because they are knocked down before the damage roll. So if you kill them while they're knocked down, they don't get a tough roll. So that's great. And then obviously he ignores tough with his big bonk and stake, which again is POW 14, which is pretty beefy for any model that isn't, you know, a heavy or something. So you get a POW 14 charge, you can kill a lot of, you can kill anything you can hit at mat 6, you're probably going to be able to kill. Ambush makes him great in some scenarios. So Incursion it might just be worth ambushing him, because they now have to be super, super cognizant of that outside flag, because you can easily just go, Hutchuck's on this flag, done. I have a friend who plays a lot of Anastasia de Bray, and he does that with her all the time. Or he contests, right? So on a scenario like Entrenched, where you have 2 long rectangles, he can easily come in on turn 2, run into the back corner of their zone, and help to contest that zone. Super good. And not to mention just like giving them something that a few things have to turn around and deal with, even if he has nothing else he could do, and that's crap, because he does, as I was just talking about. Even if he had nothing else to do, him being able to come in from behind and make something turn around to deal with him, because you can't just ignore him for the most part unless you have like nothing but high armored heavies over there, is going to help you, right? There's something, brick type armies even, things that can draw attention away from your brick when you're bricking, just makes it that much better. So I mean, and with ambush, that's certainly something he can do. So Hutchuck's definitely a minion model for Circle that I would be paying attention to. I would really be thinking about lists where you need to do more damage against warjacks in order to come ahead. Even if you have heavies, I mean, throwing another +2 to damage out there is the difference between your Stalker having to get primal or not, or your Feral having to get primal or not, a lot of the time. Colossals don't want to see a Rust Bomb, ever. Because now all of a sudden, even the little like shots you're using to soften it up, 2 more damage. Against something, we've talked about Una 1 back a little bit ago. She has her Black Penny Gun and Boostable Potens. And you could, say you play him with Tanith, you run your Griffin up there, you get Scything Touch, you do a little damage with it, you throw this on it first, that Griffin does a bunch of damage, and if it doesn't kill it, now you could have like POW 14 boosted POW 14 damage from someone like Una 1. Really, really big fan. I have mostly only played him so far with Wormwood. I'm sort of curious to see if he's solid with like a Kruger 2. Tanith, if I really feel like I need to build her a little differently. I don't know with the Griffins if he's the answer, but again, another -2 armor in that list can really help her in certain matchups, potentially. And anybody who can support minions, he's going to be pretty good with. So Wormwood and Kruger 2 are huge because none of their effects give a damn. There's a little score energy with him removing from play. You won't get a soul off the model you kill, but usually that's going to be, you've got enough models dying to fill yourself up with souls that it's not really, I wouldn't worry too much about that. So I didn't really talk much about brain damage. The fact that you have to damage for that and so few things are just casting spells at you, it's very situational. Remember it's there, especially like if you hit something like a Derek Wraith or trying to think of any prominent. If you hit Brenos with it, that'd be pretty hilarious. A few other things, but like you need to hit the Wardcaster with it, and you're probably not going to be in a position to do that unless they really screw up. So, yeah. So that is Hutchuck. Now let's go on to a Warlock. So, Morvahna the Dawnshadow. At one point considered to be the most broken Warlock in the game in Mark II when she released. I maintain in Mark II the most broken Warlock was actually Kruger 2. I suppose it's controversial. Brad, I guess, was up there too for a while, although most people attribute that to his theme force. That said, she's taken quite a few changes, so if you did play her in Mark II, I recommend brushing up on her. That's why we're going to talk about her. I've only played a couple games with her. I would say the world she plays in has changed quite a bit, and she has also changed quite a bit. So, but let's just go through it. Morvahna the Dawnshadow, she is a Circle black-clad Warlock. She is Speed 8, Mat 6, Defense and Armor 15, Command 9, which is an important stat we'll get to in a little bit. She is a Cavalry model. She has Pathfinder. She is Fury 7. She has a melee weapon, which is a 1-inch range with power and strength 12, and it's damage type magical, of course. And she has a mount attack with a 1/2-inch melee and power 12. She has 16 boxes and 27 War Beast points. Okay. On the back of her card, she has Imperishable Conviction, which means when a friendly faction model in her control range is destroyed by an enemy attack, she can remove 1 damage point. Okay. She has Reposition 5, so light cav, effectively light cav model. Great. She has Scales of Fate. So this is one of the first places that went under a lot of changes. So when a friendly faction model makes an attack or damage roll during its activation while in this model's command range, so this used to be control range at 14, now it is 9, so it's very important. Command range, this model can suffer D3 damage points to cause that model to re-roll that roll. Each roll can only be re-rolled once as a result of Scales of Fate. This damage cannot be transferred. So real quick, we're going to pause here. 2 big changes there. 1, command range. 2, damage can't be transferred. So a common strategy is you take that D3, and if it was a 3, your Gorax was getting it. And then you heal him up with a Shifting Stone. So definitely a huge change with her. I'll definitely talk about it a little bit. I felt that change immediately when I put her on the table. So Equinox, her melee weapon, has Life Trader, so she can take 1 point of damage to gain an additional die in damage rolls against a model hit with that weapon once per attack. So you can't just pay all your life for as many dice as you want. Her mount has the rule Ram. When an enemy model is hit by this weapon during this model's combat action, it becomes knocked down, and it can be pushed 1 inch directly away from this model. If the model hit is pushed, this model can immediately advance 1 inch directly towards it. So keep in mind, this is 2 distinctions. The model is knocked down, and then you may push it 1 inch, and then you may follow up 1 inch. So all those things are, the knockdown is not optional, the other 2 are. Okay. Then on, as far as her spells, she has Carnivore, which is a 2-cost range 6 upkeep, not offensive. Target friendly faction model / unit gains +2 to melee attack rolls against living models. When an affected model boxes a living model with a melee attack, the boxed model is removed from play and the spellcaster can remove D3 damage points. So she would heal D3 for each one killed. She has Censure, so this replaced Purification for those of you that remembered. It's a 2-cost range self, AoE control, not offensive. Although we'll get to that. Upkeep spells in her control range immediately expire. The spellcaster can keep any of its upkeep spells in play by suffering D3 damage points per spell, and it can be pardon me, and it can be cast only once per activation. She still has Death Knell, a 4-cost range 8 AoE 4 POW 10 offensive spell. Before dealing damage, you count the number of models in the AoE, add that result to each damage roll. So what that means also is, since obviously it's POW 10, if you directly hit and there are X models, it'll be 10 plus X, and then the blast damage will be 5 plus X. So if there's a lot of models, you potentially get a lot of work out of that spell. She has Fog of War, a 3-cost range self AoE for control area upkeepable spell that and models gain concealment while in her control range. And she has Sunder Spirit, which is a 2-cost range 10 POW 12 offensive spell, and an enemy war beast that is damaged by it loses its animus for 1 round. And then her feat, Blood Sacrifice. She immediately suffers 1 or more damage points. This damage cannot be transferred. For each damage point she suffers, return 1 destroyed non-character living friendly faction trooper model to play completely within her control range. Place returned models in formation with their original units. Units cannot exceed the number of models they had at the start of the game as a result of Blood Sacrifice. Returned models forfeit their combat action the turn in which they return to play. So her feat also was another place where there's a big change. It used to say friendly faction non-character models, warrior models, sorry. Living models. could not bring back Shifting Stones. So, big change there. So, some of the strategies used by her before were you would bring back Werewolves with Reeves Warboss, and they could do their thing. We haven't talked about them, but their solos, you can't do that anymore. And the other common thing that you would bring back with her that was a big deal was, there's two things, but one was a bigger deal, was a Gallows Grove, so that you could drop an Arc Node anywhere that you wanted on the table. And then, of course, Black-Clad Wayfarers, we've played with her quite a bit. Can't bring them back. Something like Thorn Blood. Any of our solos, you can't bring them back. Obviously, that never applied to the characters, but now it applies to no solos. Trooper model is any model in a unit, though. So you can still bring back a unit leader. Won't be, if a unit leader's dead, you can't bring the unit back because there's nobody left alive. But a command attachment or a weapon attachment, should we ever get any, would qualify in this scenario for her feat. So, but some changes there. A lot of those solos she relied on, can't bring them back. So right off the bat, there are 4 what I would call nerfs as we went from Mark 2 to Mark 3. Scales of Fate lost 5 inches of range, so it's 9 instead of 14. Damage can't be transferred from it. She lost Purification for Censure, and the feat change I just mentioned. So a lot of things changed there. And a lot of the game changed also. So a lot of what she was fantastic at was killing a lot of infantry and sort of snowballing to your advantage. And she could still take out heavies or colossals when she needed to, but she was never really engineered to take out a lot of those things. So she's not necessarily, and she still is not. So she's still not great there. She had a lot of assassination potential. I think she still does, but it's very different now. So, like I said, the Werewolves and things of that nature, not going to do it. Some of the melee attacks she did, also not really going to cut it because of how that works. And so as a result, she's a very, very different Warcaster. One thing to say, though, is that Fog of War is still a super strong spell, and if anything, we have more Prowl now. Druids of Orboros have Prowl. Black-Clad Wayfarers have Prowl. Stalkers can still Warp Prowl. Sentry Stones have Prowl. The Death Wolves always have Prowl now. The Wolflord Morag has Prowl. The only issue, I would say, is all those things I said. Oh, and actually, Pharaoh Commandos have Prowl. So, there you go. All of those things I said, none of them come back with their feet. So, you're kind of having to thread the needle there on list design as to if those are the types of things that you want to play or not. That said, the one thing her feet remain the same on. So Prowl, getting to use Fog of War to help our defenses, which are already quite high, and help trigger our Prowl. It's strong, and I felt like it was strong in the game or games. I'm forgetting if it was 1 or 2 that I played with her. Additionally, she her feat still lets you bring back models with multiple wounds with full life. So Warpborn Skinwalkers and the Alpha are fantastic, and the Alpha, particularly with his mini feat, and again, they're not something we've gone into quite yet, but with the mini feat, he's able to turn off spellcasting and units getting orders for each model within 3 inches. So you can feat and kind of like pepper them all over the place to cause as much disruption as you can at some point in the game if they've killed a number of them. So that's good. Thorn Ravagers and Thorn Bloodpact used to be played with her a lot. It was sort of the Colin Hill build in Mark II. They don't have Assault and Battery, which sort of reduces a lot of why he was playing them, because you could feat and assault. That was still a way you could get shots out of them on her feature. Don't see those with her. I honestly I kind of made up a list that had a lot of Prowl things in it and try to see how it would go. Not convinced yet of anything one way or the other after playing it, but it was there. And the thing is, with her rerolls being closer, she's going to start skewing, I think, to favor ranged armies more, because they can actually take advantage of that. But you want Carnivore and you want Imperishable Conviction, so I wouldn't say she's got Scornergy, but she's very, very difficult to build a list for. She has been for me, at least, because I'm trying to see, like, what do I need to take advantage of? Do I need Prowl? Do I need melee troops? Do I want ranged troops? Do I want both? Do I want some of each? Do I want some that can kind of do each? Do we really have that? What takes best advantage of the rerolls? Should I, is she an assassination caster? Can she play for attrition? Can she, what can she do? She's highly mobile. Censure is not purification. I think it's interesting if you ever can catch like a journeyman warcaster who didn't camp anything. I guess I'll take D3, but keep in mind they can just spend a focus to negate 5 or less damage. So that might be what you're causing them to do, which something. Death Knell's still okay. Center Spirit's still great in the matchups. I mean, it's a POW 12, so that's good. And it turning off the correct animus in a game is going to be huge. So Rush in Trolls, Rage in Trolls, and Rush in Scorn as well. Rage also in Minions. Primal and Circle, not having access to that's going to be big. Or Wraithbane, or Sprint, or Spiny Growth, for that matter. All strong, so that spell's still great. Her feat's still great for getting up on attrition, I would say. Scales of Fate is still good if you can build for it. What I would say, though, is she doesn't really want solos anymore, which I felt were a little bit more powerful with her. So as far as what to build with her, a little bit not sure right now. I feel like she shouldn't be... She's kind of considered, according to internet wisdom, if you will, mediocre to terrible. And mediocre might be accurate. Terrible, I don't think is. She still has a lot of rules on her card. She still is pretty good. Being able to fix your dice like that is phenomenally good, which was why this was sort of a change everybody had begged for a long time in Mark II. But yeah, I don't necessarily know what she wants to put in her list, because I do think she wants infantry in her list, and right now, it's if you want infantry to do work, we kind of max out at power 13 with Ravagers, 14 with ganged Skinwalkers, and power 9 Weapon Masters from Wolf Riders, power 11 possibly with Prey from the Blood Trackers, and power 9 again for a turn with Wolf's Roboros, things like that. So that's where I'm sort of lost with her. She wants to bring either a balanced list, or she wants to bring a lot of infantry, and a lot of our infantry needs at this point in the game to be able to do a lot of work against a lot of heavies, and so that's where I've sort of struggled. And again, on the list I had, I did have 2 units of Wolf Riders. They did okay. I wasn't overly impressed, I don't think. I wasn't underwhelmed either. So they did sort of what I expected them to do. I would need more games to really feel like I was confident in their play with her. Her light cav was still fantastic. She was able to get wherever she wanted. I'm pretty confident still in her ability to put down a heavy if she needs to. POW 12 Weapon Master with rerolls is nothing to scoff at. And she has knockdown, so she can engineer an assassination that way. Her personal assassination is a little bit more off the table because she's got to get a little closer than she used to, and the line is not as awkward. Keep in mind, she does have to choose between reposition and sprint in this edition, so it probably is most of the time not going to be worth putting actual sprint on her, but you do get 3 more inches of movement if you need it. And not really a whole lot else to say here. I mean, she's kind of a straightforward balance wanting caster in a world right now that isn't really looking for that. So I think she's good. I'll be really interested to see if somebody comes up with a list, and if they do and I try it out, or even if I don't try it out, we may very well give it a talk. But that's what she does. I recommend anybody who hasn't played her to at least give her a game or 2. Certainly report back to me. I'd love to talk to some folks and see what they've come up with for her. And but yeah, that's kind of all I have to say about her today. So I think we'll go ahead and cut it at 3 models. Got plenty more to go. Gotta keep you all having coming back for more. I'm hoping to continue. Right now, I'm really testing out Una 2, and then from there I'll probably be looking to see what I feel like I need to pair with her. I'm starting to kind of solidify what she doesn't want to see to a degree, although a few surprises in there. I was able to get a win against a Sloan player, for example, and that may not be something that I can rely on. I still didn't feel great in that matchup, and I think that's still not one I want to be playing if I don't have to. But she does have the tools. I think if you can use the terrain to your advantage and a few things in scenario and whatnot, you may still be okay. I don't think you're advantaged there, though. Anyway, I'm trying to figure out what Una's bad matchups are, sort of what to pair with her. Obviously, I mean, Wormwood presently is a good option. I am not in a position where I want to rely on what he does or does not do, not knowing how January is going to shake out. Obviously, if he doesn't get touched or doesn't get touched enough, he's still there. I'll go back to him. No big deal. I think there's some other Warlocks in circle that could use some attention as well, though. So that's where I'm there. Real quick, want to give a couple shout outs. So as always backwards here, always we have right here Griffin's Roost painting. All the models you've seen painted that I've shown, and any I haven't shown because I don't have pictures of all of them yet, are from Griffin's Roost Painting, which is my wife's business. She does commission painting, and her work is beautiful. Actually, I did want to show, since I didn't on the show because she wasn't done yet, this is, and I'm actually going to blow this up because I'm really happy. This is her Una 2 that she did for me, and it looks amazing. This model looks so good I'm almost scared to put it on the table. So, but anyways, I wanted to put that up there to give her some credit. Spent a lot of time on that model and it looks amazing, and I just want to brag about it. So, if you're local to me, you'll be seeing a lot of her, and if I make it to a con, you'll probably be seeing her for a while because I've been super excited. Obviously, Griffin's Roost painting. We like Griffins. Yeah. Awesome. So, anyways, just wanted to throw that up there so that I could show that off a little bit. But as always, I'd just like to thank them as a sponsor. Check them out at griffinsroostpainting.com or on Facebook at facebook.com/griffinsroostpainting, or just search for Griffin's Roost Painting. You'll find them. Also, just a quick shout out to Muson Minis. They've been gracious enough to also host my videos and let me use their stream to promote the show. So awesome, glad to see it. One of these days maybe I'll get a chance to do like a review for some of their tokens or something. I kind of want to paint my wooden ones, and maybe I'll do that and show them off a little bit. They might be tough to see on this camera. I don't know. We'll do something. And yeah, so that's pretty much all I have for this week. If you have any questions for me, Twitter, Facebook, forums, whatever, I'll try to talk about it. I know somebody asked for Kruger 2. I still have not quite put together a list I like with him yet. I've played a couple games, so and I want to get a picture of the model I have, if possible, before I talk about him. So I haven't forgotten about you, buddy. We'll see what we can do. So, but until next time, thanks for tuning in.